In this day and age, post-pandemic, remote working, fast internet, uppy-loady, we're just doing audio, not visual. Surely, where you work doesn't matter in order to get ahead writing music for film, TV, or computer games. You don't have to move to the hubs, to London, or indeed to this place, Los Angeles. You're never going to see a monologue spoken as quickly as this, with a ginger man standing next to a palm tree with the sun beating down on my ballad. And I hate to disappoint you, but as far as I know, we're still in the olden days. It's still about collaborating. It's still about relationships. It's still about getting to know people. And if you feel you can get to know people remotely via Zoom, then best of luck to you. The problem with that being that you're up against people who believe getting to know people is exactly that, being in touch, literally in touch with them. Does it have to be London? Does it have to be LA? Well, it depends on your ambition. If you're looking to work in computer games, absolutely not. If you're wanting to carve out a career getting synchronized or writing library or production music, again, maybe not. TV, well, London will do you right for that as much as this place would. But if you're wanting to get into the movies that play in movie theaters around the world, that have spaceships and zombies, action superheroes, then the answer is 100% you have to come here. And in that respect, I guess I'm a good case study, because the reason I wanted to become a film composer, the reason I wanted to work to picture, was because of the robots and the spaceships and the shooting and the zombies. I wanted to be the next composer of the Blade Runner franchise. And I knew in order to do that, I had to move here. So why didn't I? I think the fundamental misunderstanding about our job is that being able to cook does not a good chef make. Chef being chief. We are not cooks. We're not composers, although our job title is thus, and I think that makes it confusing. We are heads of department. Honing a recipe, getting good at making eggs and slinging a steak in your oven is one thing. Rolling that out across 70 covers with a galley team of a dozen odd people is an entirely different activity. So whilst this video is about the need for geography, it's also just I just really have to drive home that writing music is such a small part of what we do. For me, being able to write a beautiful piece of music is about this important in this industry. Being able to help the director tell the story effectively is about this much. Being able to deliver an effective score on time, on budget, with relatively little hassle, I'd say, is this much. Not being a cunt, well, that's, as they say, it's 50% lunch. What LA will teach you is the inherent risk people are taking making films. It's a gargantuan roll of the dice. Why would you stack the odds against you by hiring someone who did a great shepherd's pie but had never served it up to 700 odd people? Relatively speaking, by unit, fewer films are being made that will ever earn anyone any money. And in those scenarios, you will always be presented with Price's Law, which is the square root of any organisation or body of people, will do 50% of the productivity, or indeed earn 50% of the pot that's out there. This is why when you go and watch a Marvel film or a Christopher Nolan or something by Ridley Scott, it'll be one of 10 to 15 names. And once every 5 to 10 years, a new name will appear and possibly reappear. I've spoken to, maybe not thousands, but literally hundreds of composers, across the spectrum, from AAA composers to people just starting out. And every single one of them, without exception, mentions at least one other name, someone who helped, whether that be a composer who they've assisted, an editor they went to school with, a director they went to school with. And this really winds people up when I talk about this, paying your dues. I know you feel ready. I know you feel that you can write much better music than you hear. But again, it's not about music. It's about running an effective service as you would in a restaurant. And I'm not patronizing you by saying this. I was that person. I felt, and I came here to investigate and to see if I wanted to stay, because I knew if I wanted to realize my ambition of the spaceships and the robots and the zombies, it had to be here. So why didn't I stay? It's not home. And I think that's what happened to me. I got homesick. And, you know, I consider myself to be quite a worldly person who's seen some places and spent time in different countries and stuff. But in Britain, our culture and our social intercourse is based on the pub, a place where class and hierarchy is muted. And in order to maintain this kind of parity in a pub, we have to drive our sense of self to the absolute bottom. We don't talk about our riches. We don't talk about the exciting things we're doing. We talk about the weather and sports, football, horse racing, never about what we do. And here, it is simply the opposite. And it's no less a lie than back in Blighty, but here, everyone builds each other up to a point that everyone is as important as everyone else. And it can be very confusing, particularly as a visitor, because they will make you feel like a king or a queen, whereas actually all they're doing is flattening the hierarchy to the highest possible point, where us English and British will lower it to the lowest possible point. So it's a fundamental difference in culture here. The problem with the system here, in that respect, is, and this may be really unfair, there is a lot of people in the industry who are very, very frightened. There isn't the welfare kind of net here. The stakes are higher, but also with this billowing of people's egos, this elevation beyond their true worth, comes a paranoia which breeds fear, which breeds paralysis. And in this country and in this industry, they can afford to be wasteful, afford to be paralysed. Whereas in Britain, we've just got to kind of roll our sleeves up and get on with it. Being introduced to, being recommended to, being vouched for is a common form of favour debt here. Whereas in Britain, it's getting people out of the shit and being owed one. But, you know, what's not to like about this place? It's way more relaxed than London. It's got a great beach. The weather is fantastic. The food is wonderful. Lobsters and shrimp and all of that kind of stuff. What's there not to like? Well, one of the problems I had culturally was that I actually don't like this weather. I don't like the heat. It makes me deeply uncomfortable. And it means that I walk into environments which are tricky, feeling literally like a fish out of water, but looking like a sweaty red pig, being flustered and annoyed and discombobulated is not the way to walk into any meeting. Eating in this country, again, a truly liberated country, is you have to be like Poirot to work out how not to be killed with food in this country. But most of all, I don't drive. And all of these factors came together, and I remember it so clearly, going, I don't think I'll survive there. And I think this is the case for so many people. You have your dreams, your ideals, and it's just not for all of us. And it wasn't for me. And that was the point at which I just decided to take a very different trajectory, decided to make it at home. And I guess the thing that I would recommend if you're not going to come out here is diversification, I think, is really important. You know, so I first divided my time between doing low-budget British movies, got into TV, which helped out a bit, but it was always subsidised by library music. And I used the income from library music to create my kind of entrepreneurial career, creating tools for composers. And I don't think I'd still be composing if it wasn't for that diversification. And that's the truth of it. But Some people get it, and some people get it right. And in fact, if you look at the number of Brits, of Europeans working here successfully as film composers, well, we're very much overrepresented. And indeed, a gentleman who I believe I gave him his first Hollywood job, he ended up writing the score for the second Blade Runner with Hans Zimmer. I suspect he made sacrifices to his life, to his home. Something that comes up a lot on this vlog is success is by and large based on luck. And I'm of that Greek philosopher's opinion that luck is when practice meets opportunity. We can practice that shepherd's pie. We can practice that service. But if you don't put yourself in opportunity's way, the luck will never happen. The reason I come out to LA 6 times a year is to try and stand in the way of opportunity. Try and make sure the opportunities that are turned into luck continue to be lucky. I'll never forget coming out here to speak to the heads of one of the biggest companies on the planet about a really seriously amazing deal and fucking up so royally. It's not bad luck. The opportunity presented itself. I just didn't have the practice. And I think that that's what being somewhere affords you, is the ability to practice, to get pushed back and to come back, to be in a place full of opportunity that affords you the ability to practice to the point in which you become lucky, whether that be London or LA. So what should you do? Should you put your hanky on the stick and come across the Atlantic to LA? Well, I would suggest doing what I did. Try and come and spend a bit of time here. Try and befriend a composer, try and find a project that's being done out here and see for yourself what you think. I really love America and I really love LA and I love it as a visitor. I'm not reliant on this culture to look after myself and my children. For that, I rely on my experience making the least out of what I'm doing, not telling the truth about how things are going for me and talking about the weather. And that's the problem here. The weather's just always the same. I don't know how you talk about it. Hot, yes, again. And I guess the Brit in me makes me feel very awkward feeling that I'm an authority to be able to talk to you like this. It is just one man's opinion, one 52-year-old man with ginger hair who is going to have blisters on his head tomorrow from this sun. I'm very much part of a consensus that you should form through talking to people, watching videos like this and experiencing it for yourself. But I do believe going into a situation being foretold has its value. And I hope that you can extract that from this video. So if you haven't subscribed, we are a startup. It's our lifeline. So do subscribe, ding the bell to be notified the next time I put a video up. I'm actually here in LA talking to some amazing library production music people, and we're going to put them on camera, have them talk about the industry and what it faces with AI, all of that kind of stuff. So well worth dinging the bell. One of those always much appreciated. And in news, our merch, which we're really proud of, a lot of people are really enjoying our merch, the wall charts, the t-shirts, is now international. Hurrah! So again, that's a great way of supporting Crow Hill, so we and I can make films telling you about why I didn't feel comfortable in LA, because they don't talk about the weather enough. Much love, see you later. Right, after sun.